I lived in this city for about half my life. In 1984, a movie came out that put my city on the map forever. Daniel and his mom would have pulled up right there in the station wagon, looking up at those palm trees. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how little this building has changed since 1984. Now, one thing that has changed is right next door. This, of course, was that big empty lot that Cobra Kai chases Daniel through. Now, the crazy thing is this remained an empty lot until just a couple of years ago. Whenever I would drive by here, I would stare into this empty lot and I would picture Daniel running from Cobra Kai. The station wagon's parked right there and Daniel's taking his bike off the roof rack. He heads up this double path that looks much like it did in the movie, except for the palm tree in the middle. Now, one thing that does look different is the front gate. In the movie, it's got that wooden fence, but I've seen some of the rehearsal footage, and in that footage, it has a metal gate similar to the one that it has now. So I have a feeling that that wooden fence was added just for the movie. After Daniel kicks open the gate, knocking over Freddy, they walk into the courtyard. The pool gate now goes from side to side, but in the movie, it just surrounds the pool because Daniel and Freddy actually walk down this path just to the left of the pool. Of course, the other thing that has changed is the pool now has water in it. Right here, this is where the old lady and her dog would have been sitting that Daniel stops to talk to before heading upstairs. It's sad to see that the waterfall just below Daniel's apartment is no longer functional. Another thing that's changed is all those multicolored rectangles. They're still there, but now they're painted a boring gray color to match the rest of the railing. Daniel heads up these very same steps to the front door of his new home here in apartment number 20. Daniel then heads back downstairs to find the maintenance man, passing by the pool and through that doorway. This is the exact same path that Daniel walks down the first time he's going to meet Mr. Miyagi. He comes out this gate here and turns to the right and sees Mr. Miyagi's workshop. As you can see, in reality, it was just a carport space that they put up a fake wall to turn it into a workshop. This is where that chain link fence would have been, separating Daniel's apartment and that big empty field. Now let me walk over here and show you where that big empty field was. Now are these brand new townhouses. And actually, this unit right here on the end, their backyard is where that iconic scene would have took place between Mr. Miyagi and Cobra Kai. Mr. Miyagi would have hopped the fence right about there and had that fight with Johnny and the rest of the Cobra Kai crew. This would have been the LaRusso parking spot where we see Daniel's mom pulling in their station wagon. And right over here was that dumpster where we see Daniel having one of his many temper tantrums. After Daniel's mom finally calms him down, they head inside, and Mr. Miyagi comes out and wonders what the heck is wrong with Daniel. We see Daniel and his new friends playing soccer here on the beach with those mountains in the background behind them. They go running across the beach here and notice that big rock out in the middle of the water, and there it is. Of course, Allie and her friends are sitting over here with these big rocks in the background behind them. This is where Daniel first sees Allie and realizes that the best way to get her attention is to stand about a foot away from her and just stare at her for a really uncomfortable amount of time. Nope, nothing creepy about that. Cobra Kai comes around this corner on their motorcycles. They stop right here next to this hedge. We see lifeguard tower number 2 behind them, along with this wooden post, part of the staircase heading down to the beach. After they notice Daniel and Allie down there on the beach, they ride their motorcycles down this path. In the movie, you can see they placed some fake street lamps along this path. They kind of look out of place. Cobra Kai comes out of that path right there. They were up there by lifeguard tower number 2. They come out of that path and Johnny confronts Allie, throwing her radio onto the sand. Right here in front of me, this is where Johnny and Daniel have that first fight. Over here on the north side of the beach is where Daniel sees Mr. Miyagi practicing the crane kick for the very first time. But as you can see, those wooden posts are no longer there. And right over here in this parking lot is where Daniel and Mr. Miyagi encounter the men leaning up against Miyagi's truck. Daniel's riding his bike coming off of Philprim Street. Now it's kind of hard to see now because of the bushes and trees, but right there, that big window can be seen behind Daniel's head as he rides by the house. He comes this way, crossing the street, and heads into the parking lot of the school. In reality, it's Charles Evans Hughes Junior High School. Daniel locks up his bike somewhere over here and heads into school. That's when he notices Johnny and Cobra Kai standing in front checking out a motorcycle. Now they would have been standing right here in front of this dirt patch. Daniel realizes it's going to be a tough year and heads into school, and that's when the camera pans over to this plaque, and here it is. A little bit tarnished, but still there all these years later. Now that the school's no longer functional, the field's being used by some softball teams, so they've divided up the field into multiple softball diamonds. But right out here, this is where the incident happens, where they're playing soccer and Bobby trips Daniel. Allie would have been somewhere over here with the cheerleaders when she comes over to talk to Daniel, and she's walking back towards the blacktop when Daniel first learns her name. And Daniel would have been right over here bouncing the soccer ball on his knee. Notice the houses in the background. Right here in front of me is where Bobby and Daniel get into that fight. Right when he trips Daniel, you see a car turn onto that little side street back there. After Daniel gets thrown off the soccer field, he has another one of his many tantrums and goes walking off towards the school. As he's walking off that way, Allie stares at him, and just like Mr. Miyagi, she wonders what the heck is wrong with Daniel. Allie's walking this way with her friends. They walk right by that classroom. That's when Daniel sees her and comes running out and follows her down this path. They're walking along talking about Daniel's supposed motorcycle accident and his Miyagi turbo. They round the corner right here. You can see these bathrooms and trees. Everything pretty much looks just like it did. She invites Daniel to go to the arcade with them. Notice this water fountain right here. This can clearly be seen in the background behind them. That's when Daniel notices Johnny and Cobra Kai standing out in front of the school. Daniel suddenly remembers that he has something to do, and he goes running off back down the same path that they just came from. A frustrated Allie stands between the water fountain and this classroom before finally heading out the front gate. Here inside this gym is where the infamous Halloween dance happens. Once a junior high gymnasium, now turned into a warehouse. Daniel would have walked right through these doors that I'm standing in. Notice the basketball hoop up there. That can be seen in many shots. Daniel finds Allie and they dance somewhere over here in the middle of the gym. Notice those double doors where the exit sign would have been above them? That's where Daniel comes running out of after he soaks Johnny in the bathroom. Johnny chases Daniel right underneath this basketball hoop before Allie trips Johnny, sending him sliding across the floor. Daniel comes running out these doors, out into the street, causing a multi-car collision before running out that gate. They set up some fake street lamps along the sidewalk right here, just like the ones that we saw at the beach. Those street lamps must have been on special at the prop warehouse that week. Daniel's getting some books out of his locker as Allie walks up behind him and taps him on the shoulder. We see that Daniel's locker is just to the left of 281, and when Allie moves, we see the locker that she's leaning up against has no number tag on it. There's 281, and there's the tagless locker. Right there is where Allie would have been standing. As she walks away to go confront Cobra Kai, we see this water fountain in the background behind her, and her friends would have been standing right by these poles and that little wall down there. Johnny's standing over here, and as Daniel walks up to talk to him, we very briefly see these stairs. A few moments later, we see Daniel and Allie walking across this lawn right here in front of me when Allie gives Daniel her address so he can take her on a date. After Allie walks away, Daniel notices Johnny over there, and he tries to trick a teacher into giving Johnny a lecture. After Daniel's trick backfires and Johnny and the rest of Cobra Kai run off, Daniel and the teacher walk off towards that tree. This was the Orient Express, the restaurant where Daniel's mom worked, and he met her for lunch and first saw the Cobra Kai dojo across the street. This building here was the one that stood in for the Cobra Kai dojo. Daniel would have been staring at the window giving us a shot similar to this one. Located off Laurel Drive in Agora Hills is this little hidden park, and if we walk to the very back of this park, we find something pretty cool. Daniel was riding up here when Cobra Kai comes along and forces him down the hill. Now at the time, none of these houses were here. Some of them were under construction, but basically this was just all empty. They forced Daniel down this hill right here. And as you can see, in real life, this is actually a really big and steep hill. This house off in the distance can be seen behind Daniel, and at the time was in the middle of being built. This really is a big steep hill. You really don't get an idea of how big it is in the movie. This is the building that was used for all the interiors of the Cobra Kai dojo. We also see the exteriors when Daniel and Miyagi are coming out of the dojo, crossing the street to Miyagi's truck, which would have been parked somewhere right about where I'm at right now. This building remained a martial arts studio for many years after Karate Kid was made. My band used to actually rehearse about a block down the street, so I would walk by this building all the time and I would always stop to look inside. And it still looked exactly like it did in the movie, except unfortunately there was no cardboard cutout of John Kreese. This is the former site of Mr. Miyagi's house. Where this house now stands, this would have been the back side of Miyagi's house, where Daniel learns to sand the deck and paint the fence. This house right across the street can very briefly be seen in Karate Kid Part 2. This was a huge lot that stretched from one block to the next, and the only thing on it was Mr. Miyagi's house. In the late 80s, they tore that down and built a bunch of duplexes. Now let's go around to the other block and I'll show you where the entrance to Mr. Miyagi's house used to be. This right here was the entrance to Mr. Miyagi's house. And like I said, at the time it was just a big empty field. So everything that you see, that oil field and the railroad tracks, that was all fake and just added for the movie. Notice back here, this gray pyramid-shaped garage roof, that can be seen in the background when the truck's pulling into the driveway. Along with this house across the street, that roof line can be seen for just a split second in the background. It's pretty amazing to think that all of this was once Mr. Miyagi's house. On Alonzo Avenue in the hills of Encino, this is the home of Allie Mills. Daniel and his mother would have pulled up and parked their station wagon right here in front before Daniel took that long walk up those steps to the front porch. Now, I haven't been up here for a while, but the last time I was here, they didn't have that gate in front of the porch. I seriously wonder if they got sick of Karate Kid fans running up there and kicking the brick. And of course, his mom's car won't start, and they have to push it right here in this intersection. Golf and Stuff, Norwalk, California. This is, of course, where Daniel and Allie go on their date. The station wagon would have been parked right here in front of me. And of course, that big water slide that would have been right here in the back of the parking lot no longer exists.
We'll come back and do that next time.
It's pretty cool that they have this on display out here. This path right here would have been where they come walking out as the Corvette pulls up. Johnny and his friends would have come from over this way, and of course Mrs. LaRusso pulls up right here.
I really like your car, Mrs. LaRusso.
Although the arcade inside looks completely different, here's a little bit of that go-kart track that we see them on. This is the Chatsworth Reservoir, and unfortunately it's completely closed off to the public these days. But inside here is the body of water where we see Daniel balancing on the boat just before Mr. Miyagi knocks him into the water. We also see Daniel here later in the movie practicing his punches. The Encino Oaks Country Club is actually the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Thousand Oaks. Daniel would have been standing right here in his best looking valet uniform waiting for Allie. Daniel walks off this way and we see the Encino Oaks Country Club sign. Right here in one of these banquet rooms is where Allie and Johnny are dancing and Daniel gets covered in spaghetti. Unfortunately, due to all the restrictions going on, there's just no way for us to get inside right now. Here at Cal State Northridge, this is where the All Valley Karate Championship takes place. Right there where that glass trophy case is, that's where the registration table would have been set up and where Mr. Miyagi steals the black belt. Right through that door is the arena where the Karate Championship takes place. But again, unfortunately, due to all the restrictions, right now only authorized personnel is allowed inside. So unfortunately, for now, this is the best we're going to get.